Hi, and welcome to the Armchair podcast, brought to you by the editors of thearmchairpundits.com. I'm Rob Schatten.
And I'm Chris King.
We're going to start today by jumping headfirst into John Terry.
Rather like John Terry jumped straight into Wayne Bridges' girlfriend.
Nice, excellent. John Terry, of course, is the biggest football story of the weekend, overshadowing everything that happened in the Premier League by announcing last night that he's retiring from the England football team.
And international football generally, this being the days when you can't just play for two teams like Alfredo Di Stefano managed, and other people like Ferenc Puskás, who also played for Spain briefly.
It's where communism helps. Terry, who retires on 78 caps after 2 stints as captain in his 9-year international career, is probably going to hurt Roy Hodgson the most of all with this announcement. We figure that he would have been a starter for England for at least another year or so. And
even then, he would still have had a great impact upon the squad and bringing through the younger players who, while being of an age in Premier League terms, like Joleon Lescott, for instance, or Phil Jagielka, they don't have the international experience, especially of major tournaments, that someone like Terry does. There's two ways of looking at this. Either it's a really, really selfish decision by a man who knows he's guilty, or at least knows he's going to be found guilty, and wants to save his own skin, or it's a very difficult decision made by a man who's had all options closed off to him by the FA.
To be honest, before we started planning out this debate, I was in the latter camp, that Terry was being forced out of England by the FA, but having heard some of the reasoning from my esteemed co-editor, I'm finding myself sat nice and comfortably in
the middle. You're in the middle, are you?
I am in the middle, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad place to be. Rather like Wayne Bridges' girlfriend. I'm going to keep doing these throughout.
Excellent. We'll have it as a running theme.
Yep. Oh God. Let's carry on from that abomination of a joke to go on to. Well, you say you're in the middle of the debate now. I would probably put myself slightly to the left. I think that it is a bit of a selfish decision by Terry, and it is self-preservation. Obviously, it was difficult for him. You may have seen the article on the Armchair Pundits where John Terry said that it was a very hard decision for him to step down, and that he never planned to do this, he never wanted to do this, but he felt he'd been hounded out. And you do feel sorry for him to some extent.
Yeah, I do. I mean, like I said earlier, the man's twice been, for spells, been captain of his country. He's the leave it on the line player. He's the man that you would want going into the final minutes of a 1-1 game. If you've got someone chasing a ball down on the goal line, you want it to be Terry. He's one of those men who will literally bust a lung to get back and make a clearance. In that respect, despite the fact that arguably his best days and certainly his closest days to athleticism are behind him, I think he's going to be a big loss for England.
Precisely. I mean, I wrote in the article that I created this morning that there's no question that Terry still has something to offer to England. It's just the fact that obviously he doesn't want to offer it, and he feels he no longer can. But what does this mean for the England team? Because obviously everyone's been talking about Terry, and it's nice to debate the ins and outs of his decision, but the point is that he has now made it. He won't be playing for England, so are we assuming it's a Joleon Lescott and Phil Jagielka defensive masterclass, or are we going to bring sort of Terry Butcher out of retirement to cope with the loss of such an iconic defender?
I think for me, those two and Gary Cahill really are the three standouts. I've always highly rated Stephen Taylor as a centre-back, but he's never even been close to the England setup. Rio Ferdinand's finest days are behind him. His younger brother doesn't look like emerging as an England prospect.
Not exactly. No, it's a shame, but the good point about Gary Cahill is obviously that he plays with Terry. He will be learning from Terry as we speak, and Terry will have a lot to offer to him, and he may be a defender that, I was about to use the word groom there, but in the context of some of the awful jokes that have been made about John Terry so far, we probably shouldn't go down that particular avenue. Again, something Terry might have considered when he was carrying on with Wayne Bridges' girlfriend. But that's a story for another day and a joke for another segment.
The irony of it is that Terry has overshadowed a good result for Chelsea this weekend with the, I think battling would be an understatement, 1-0 win over Stoke. Did you see David Luiz's tackle on Jonathan Walters?
Yes, it was horrendous. I mean, on a weekend where refereeing has been such a hot topic, which we will get onto later. We just had a grimacing look from Rob there, but we will get onto that later. It's I don't understand how you could have missed that. It looked awful on the television. It looked awful from where the referee was standing, and presumably for John Walters, it still feels awful.
I would imagine he booked him, didn't he? He booked Lewis for that.
Which is obviously the shame, because I think when you book someone, you can't take any further action, because obviously it would undermine the decision made by the referee. But this is another debate as well. If the referee's decision is patently wrong, then surely that's a rule that needs to change. Something for the FA to consider. Although if it's anything like the Terry thing, setting up a commission to look into it would probably take a decade, let alone ruling on a decision.
The only obvious debate from the Lewis tackle, if he'd been on the other side in that game and been wearing the red and white stripes of Stoke City, would he have finished the game on the pitch?
Interesting one. I don't think Stoke have the same sort of, despite the attempts by Arsene Wenger to sort of demonise them as the worst thing to hit football since the professional foul, they're not that dirty a team anymore in reality. So I don't think he would have been any more likely to be sent off playing for Stoke with that. I just think the referee got it wrong, plain and simple.
It is the Premier League's most negative stereotype, I think, Stoke City.
Yes, for a team that have comfortably stayed up 3-4 years now.
4 years in a row, I think.
There's not much more you can say than that. Well done, Tony Pulis. Your awful touchline demeanour is serving Stoke City well with that terrible cap.
Beneath the accusations of constant hard fouling and the fact that they can only score through throw-ins, there is a decent footballing side under there somewhere.
Can I just make the point that Tony Pulis' cap is probably the worst one since the one given to Francis Jeffers about 8 or 9 years ago?
Yes, yeah, I do remember that. That was a bad hat. So we're going to move on now.
So the big game of the weekend was Liverpool-Manchester United, wasn't it, Rob?
Yes, absolutely delighted that Liverpool-Manchester United managed to pass off completely without any incident. Almost.
Yes, it was one of those spectacular football matches where literally nothing happened.
No. Apart from 2 declined penalty shouts and a soft given penalty and a red card and lots of pointing and shouting at Sir Alex Ferguson this time. Usually it's the other way.
Now, I want to bring in something that not even you would have expected me to mention, which is there's no such thing as Brendan time, is there?
There was 8 minutes of extra time in that game.
There was also a sending off and a grievous injury.
Yes.
And a penalty.
It was in the first half, wasn't it, the sending off?
But there was also a penalty, and Martin Kelly went off injured, and that's a really bad injury. That one is going to keep him out for 8 to 9 months. We wish him all the best. Real shame for that, for a young player.
Liverpool are pretty lucky, actually, that is the only one, because Glenn Johnson's horrific tackle on Daniel Agger could very well have been another serious knee injury. You're looking at me with a look of confusion.
No, I do remember that one. That was fantastic, yeah. That was the one that led to the penalty.
Yes, it led directly to Johnson again giving away the penalty.
Yeah, this is... We would love to know your feedback. This is the bit where we bring people in. If you tweet us at ArmchairPundit2 and let us know, did you think it was a penalty? I have to say that I like my penalties to involve some contact and foul. Rob seemingly feels
I think that there was a push by Johnson, and almost regardless of that, I think to put his hands on Valencia's back and to make the referee make the decision there is clumsy by the defender. And I think given the penalty shouts that went against Liverpool at the other end, and I say shouts there in inverted commas, but I think because the United penalty came so soon after the Liverpool penalties were rejected, it's added to the sense of ill feeling about the decision against Johnson.
Yes, I mean the other interesting one was the big tackle. Again, that has nothing to do with John Terry.
Oh, I thought we were done with the John Terry.
There's nobody else who you can... Well, you just can't keep it up. Again, no jokes, please. You can't keep it up throughout the whole thing if it's not John Terry.
Fair enough. No, I think the Shelby tackle was... I'm already on record as saying this, so I might as well back it up now. I think the Shelby tackle was not just late, but was malicious.
I don't think it was malicious. I think what was malicious was his rant at Sir Alex, which was interesting. But the tackle itself was... And certainly, I don't think it was much worse than the tackle made by a certain Robin van Persie, which only earned a yellow card, which was I don't know which Liverpool player it was, but he absolutely scythed him down.
Oh yeah, late in the game. Yeah, that one appears to have slipped my memory briefly. Then
that was a very poor challenge.
Yes, it was
by a player who doesn't make tackles.
On that subject, Paul Scholes made a decent tackle in this game, the second of the 2-in-1 Liverpool penalty shout. I forget who. Certainly, the first one was Suarez jumping over Johnny Evans.
Wasn't it Sterling and Suarez? One of them was...
Sterling was the player that was actually accurately tackled by Paul Scholes, and I've been watching Manchester United for at least 16 of Paul Scholes' 18 seasons in the red shirt, and that's, I don't know, probably 3 legal tackles he's made now.
Well, I mean, I think pound for pound, that tackle was the best challenge. The tackle on Sterling, wait for the joke, was probably the best challenge of Paul Scholes' career.
I get it. Very good.
Yep, thanks.
It's a good job you explained it.
Always the funniest jokes. Yeah, that was... No, it was an interesting game. We should also take this opportunity to credit Robin van Persie for scoring the penalty after having to wait, well, the footballing equivalent of about 9 months for the for his penalty to be able to be taken, and then Pepe Reina was very unlucky not to make the full save, having guessed correctly. But then again, there was a lot of power on the penalty from Van Persie.
He does hit a good penalty.
He does. So that was a good game to watch. It wasn't. A lot of people were saying it wasn't a vintage United-Liverpool match. It was certainly rare to see United given a penalty at Liverpool. That doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't, no. Mind you, Liverpool don't get given penalties at Old Trafford either.
No, well, nobody gets given penalties at Old Trafford.
I should have seen that coming, really, shouldn't I?
Apart from United, of course, who...
got 3 home penalties all of last season.
All I know is that one of them came when Sean Derry was unfairly dismissed for a... Oh no, was that his goal by Ashley Young, which was not only offside, but also a dive, which got Sean Derry sent off. I think that was it. That was at Old Trafford. Anyway, I think that was almost unanimously agreed to be a horrific act of cheating by everyone's pantomime villain of last season.
We'll wrap up this Liverpool United discussion, because I fear where it's going, frankly, by praising both clubs, and in particular Messrs Everett and Suarez for the actually managing to resolve their mutual inability to touch hands before the match. It was good to see some adult behaviour from 2 such childish players.
Yes, exactly. It was a good touch to see that they... Well, I'm sure it was a good touch to see that they shook hands. It was also worth saying that the occasion was handled spectacularly well by the United fans, and Sir Alex Ferguson's behaviour has been exemplary through all of this, which is great, because we're all pleased that Hillsborough's been respected in the way it should always be, and perhaps hasn't always been, by a small minority of idiotic United fans.
Mm-hmm. I think the widespread criticism of the United fans by other United fans has sort of made the mark in the sand on that one. I don't think that a club with its own history of tragedies needs to be mocking someone else for theirs. Unfortunately, I think we saw a corner turned there this weekend.
I certainly hope so, because it's distasteful and unpleasant, to say the least. So, yeah, very pleased with how it came off.